Well, I didn't think it would happen again, but here we are. It's time to talk about editorial direction for the second time. Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. As the storm rages outside, today's video is one of those videos that I really don't want to make. I want to be reviewing products, talking about high quality items, and just recommending the best things for you to buy. But unfortunately, one company is making it hard for us to do this at the moment through attempting to manipulate our editorial direction and pay for the privilege. That company is LG, and attempting to exert that sort of control during the review process is totally unacceptable, which is why we are talking about it today. Now, you might be familiar with the previous time that a company tried to control what we say in our reviews. That was in December last year, when Nvidia threatened to withhold graphics card review samples unless we talked about certain features that favor them. If you missed that story, you can check it out here. But what LG are attempting to do is arguably worse, because not only have they outlined specific review guidelines that we must follow to review one of their latest monitors, but they have also attempted to pay us to comply. We have of course refused their demands and are instead choosing to expose their dirty tactics. First though, some backstory. We've had a positive working relationship with LG for several years, directly with their marketing team based in Korea. Since the start of 2019, we've tested 11 monitors they have provided us, in addition to one monitor provided by our local Australian team and one monitor we've bought ourselves. Coverage has been mostly positive, not that this should matter, because LG genuinely make good quality monitors with good performance. Normally the review process has been extremely straightforward. LG asks us if we want to review a monitor. We say yes, they send out the monitor, we review it, and that's it. No strange requests, a very standard process with the occasional bit of communication about extra information or notifying them of bugs. Certainly no red flags. The most recent review we did was on the LG 27GP850, and this is where things started to get a bit strange, but nothing too bad. At the last minute, LG decided to implement an embargo on the review. In other words, they didn't want us publishing the review before a certain date, which is fairly standard for reviewing products before they are available to purchase. Normally embargoes are sorted before you begin the review process, so in this instance we hadn't agreed to an embargo, but with our content schedule there were no issues delaying the review by a couple of weeks to allow other reviewers fair time to complete their testing as well. Most reviewers would be familiar with situations like this. It's a very typical behind the scenes thing that happens from time to time, confusion around embargoes, changing dates and so on. It's frustrating, but generally we just get on with our lives. Anyway, we published the review, which you can go watch on our channel right now if you're interested in what we said. It's quite a positive review, both in terms of the title, thumbnail, and review content. In the conclusion, I say the following. Overall, LG continues to provide impressive monitors in the gaming market. All up, I think the 27GP850 is a great monitor. In my opinion, the 27GP850 is the best in its class of the monitors I've tested, with a combination of great response times and a functional sRGB mode pushing it over the edge. I think generally it is worth the price premium, and its overall balance of features with few weak areas makes it a monitor you won't be disappointed to have. And in many cases I think the 27GP850 will be ticking a lot of boxes, so it gets my recommendation. So as you can see, testing went well and I ended up recommending the product with a few caveats as usual. No display is perfect and there are alternative options on the market to consider. Following the review, LG had a follow-up question about one of the display's overdrive modes I had tested and the results I presented. It wasn't a significant factor in the review overall, but LG wanted some clarity given I called the faster mode unusable. Again, this is typical. I'm usually happy to provide additional information on our testing and conclusions. In this instance, I retested the mode, noticed a small error in my testing, informed LG and apologized, and corrected the review. You can see a note about this in the pinned comment below the review, and this is standard for us. We always correct errors when we spot them to the best of our ability with YouTube's tools. But again, the review overall was positive anyway. We recommended the 27GP850 in the conclusion, and this update had no significant impact on that. I still recommend it, by the way. It's a good product that's just been released. Now this is where the fun begins and where LG begins attempting to exert their control on our reviews. Because the 27GP850 wasn't the only monitor LG had sent out to review. They had also provided their 32GP850, a 32-inch variant of their new Nano IPS 1440p 180Hz offering for gaming. This is where the backstory on the 27GP850's embargo date becomes important, because LG had also decided after the fact to implement an embargo on the 32GP850. Crucially here, when LG lifted the embargo on the 27GP850, they also decided to lift the embargo on the 32GP850. Again, we had never agreed to any embargo, but with the all clear from LG, our plan was to publish the 32GP850 review a couple of weeks after the review for the 27-inch model. I began and completed testing on the 32GP850 shortly after the 27GP850 review went live. Anyway, when LG asked about the overdrive mode issue with the 27GP850, at the same time they decided to re-implement an embargo on the 32GP850 review with no firm date. Again, at no point had we agreed to any embargo, and there was some back and forth emailing with LG about this because, as you might appreciate, I'd already tested the monitor and it was frustrating for LG to stuff us around like this. No embargo, then there's an embargo gets lifted, then re-implemented. LG didn't provide great reasoning on why they wanted to implement an embargo on the 32GP850 review a second time, and at this point I was suspicious as to their motives. LG said they were having internal issues and they were asking to delay a little. Without agreeing to this, I asked when the embargo would expire and didn't hear back from them for 4 weeks. I had plenty of other stuff to work on and didn't want to deal with this rubbish, so just put it aside given the monitor wasn't released yet. So a couple of days ago, I asked LG again when the embargo was going to expire on the 32GP850 review. A few of you guys have been asking us to review it, especially following our recent review of Gigabyte's M32Q, which is a similar monitor. And keep in mind, I have already tested it, I was just waiting to publish the review. In fact, I have the monitor right here. This is it, this is the 32GP850, and I've had it for a few months now actually, but unfortunately LG so far hasn't allowed us to publish the review results yet. Anyway, I hear back from LG, and boy oh boy, because now not only are they attempting to implement an embargo on the review, they are now also providing internal direction on how I should be reviewing the monitor. I'll read this email to you because it only gets worse. Sorry for making you wait. Things been decided about 2 to 3 days ago. So there has been updates on 32GP850 specifically. There is an internal direction that all the 32GP850 has to be reviewed after the following guideline. Now, 2 things to note here. Firstly, we are talking to a marketing analyst at LG CNS based in Korea, which explains the less than perfect English. No issues with this, of course, just an explanation for the things we're going to be reading out. LG CNS are a subsidiary of LG and appear to be providing marketing resources to LG Electronics, another subsidiary who actually make the monitor. These are both separate to LG Display, who manufacture the panels that LG Electronics use. LG are a massive company and have a complex corporate structure, but I think it's important to point out the people we have been working with for several years are from LG CNS specifically. Secondly, this marketing analyst gets the name of the product wrong a few times, calling it the 32EP850, which doesn't exist. It's a 32GP850, so keep that in mind as we go through these emails. These are the guidelines that LG have provided. The first one says, comparison. Please avoid comparing 32GP850 with any of our past LG models. Instead, we'd prefer comparison with any other brand's IPS model that's out in the market. Now, this is of course a guideline we would never agree to. I mean, we would never agree to any guidelines, but this one is particularly bad. We compare monitors in our testing to whatever other monitors we want to, whether that's from the same brand or other brands. Our assumption here being presented, this guideline, is that LG doesn't want us to tell you how much of an improvement the 32GP850 is over their existing products, which in some situations may be cheaper or better value. The second guideline is Ufo Test. As for the Ufo test, you'll need to get it on 180Hz and set 960 pixel per sec with middle grace pattern. The Ufo test refers to this test, which provides a visual representation of a monitor's motion clarity and shows us things like blur and inverse ghosting. Our guess is LG only want us to test the monitor in this mode, as it would produce favorable results for them. Of course, this is a completely ludicrous request we would never agree to. And the third and final guideline is this: CR testing. If you'd like to test CR, please test in this mode, OSD Picture Adjust Gamma Mode 4 setting. I believe CR testing is in reference to contrast ratio, and again, it appears LG want us to only show favorable results for their product as measured in a specific display mode. We don't test like this, we use the same calibrated results for all contrast ratio measurements, and of course, like any guidelines, we would never agree to this. LG are free to suggest ways to test. Many companies do this through review guides, but stipulating that a monitor has to be reviewed following a certain guideline is overstepping the boundary between company and reviewer in a big way. Oh, but there's more. If your review to 32GP850 contains nothing that would be against the guideline, please let me know. Otherwise, few edits would necessary. What LG is saying here is pure manipulation of our independent editorial control. They want us to follow the ridiculous guidelines they outlined to make their product look good, or else edit the review so that only these guidelines are followed. This made my blood boil a little bit, but the following two sentences made it worse. Also for this 32 EP850 review, we decided for all the reviewers to provide us its drafts. We can definitely discuss about the additional compensation for sharing drafts. So at this point, LG wants us to follow their review guidelines and edit our review so the guidelines are followed. They also want to see a draft of the review before it goes live, presumably to check to make sure we are indeed doing what they say. And then, unbelievably, they are offering us what appears to be money or some form of compensation to comply. There's only one way I can describe this. LG are attempting to bribe a reviewer to produce a favorable review. This is despicable conduct from LG. I was honestly gobsmacked reading this email after simply asking when the embargo date for the monitor was. Not only is this conduct wrong in so many ways, it's also idiotic to even suggest these things to a reviewer in an email. And to us. It was only 6 months ago that we exposed NVIDIA for doing something not even as bad as this. This very topic made shockwaves through our industry, and yet LG has bobbed up to repeat the same mistakes. After receiving this email, I promptly responded to LG saying that we weren't going to comply and will instead review the monitor as normal. LG proceeded to dig their own grave with their follow-up emails. If this be the case, I think we should not proceed this content. We appreciate all your efforts here and true comments on this product. However, we did not expect that this product would have a such issue. LG never specified what this issue is. We're well known with your channel and appreciate your own review policies. Thus, if we were told with this guideline at the beginning, we would have avoided asking your channel for a review on 32GP850. As you've mentioned about your solid policies and we appreciate those, we would not ask for its draft or further compensation. But instead, we should have to exclude this review gets lived on your channel. Essentially here, I gave LG a chance to allow us to review the product following our standard review process with no interference from LG. Instead, they respond and told us we should not publish the review on our channel. I responded saying this was unacceptable and asked for the consequences for publishing the review anyway, just to see whether they would blacklist us. Their response was, however, including your review and others about GP850, our client found out that GP850 is not quite a model that was with expected outcome, especially when it comes to the faster mode. We expected much more of advanced result on this model compared to the previous 1 millisecond models of ours, but it obviously did not. Thus, our client is worried about audience being not interested in our new models. Also, this may cause drops of our estimated sales rate of this new product. We are already dealing with some of issue relating to our concerns above. Thus, we are trying to make this stop happening from further reviews of GP850. Your review may or may not contain what we are concerning of. But unless I get to know your review certainly not containing what we are concerning, I would have to ask for you to dropping this review. This is the only choice I have, and I am really sorry again for asking you this. So this basically confirms it. LG wanted to control our review and for us to only review it in a specific way, and offered compensation so we would do this because LG are worried about reviews causing a drop in sales. They specifically say in this follow-up that they are trying to stop this happening with further reviews. This is an unbelievable confirmation of editorial interference from one of the largest monitor manufacturers in the world. They also confirm in this email that they specifically wanted to see what was in our review before we published it to ensure nothing of concern would be said, and because we refused, they just don't want us to publish the review at all. Apparently this is their only choice. Oh, and they never specified the actual consequences for us failing to comply. If we published the review anyway, would we be blacklisted? It's hard to say for certain, other than they likely wouldn't be happy with us. Not that they'll be happy now that we've published these emails in this video. So this whole situation is outrageous and a staggering admission of an attempt to control reviews for financial gain. LG committed several huge sins in this exchange. They tried to stipulate specifically how we must review their product. They attempted to gain editorial control over our review by requesting a draft and mandating edits if their guidelines weren't adhered to. They offered us compensation to comply, effectively bribing us to create a manipulated review, and then admitted this was all because they were concerned feedback would hurt their sales. To top it all off, when we refused, they asked us not to publish the review at all. Of course, because we never agreed to any embargo or NDA date for this product's review, we are well within our rights to publish our review, and trust me, we will. But LG's attempts to manipulate us need to be called out separately. We do not stand for this, and suggesting this sort of thing to reviewers is totally unacceptable and crosses the line. To make matters even more crazy, at no point have we ever told LG what we actually think of the 32GP850. They have no idea if our review will be positive or negative. I haven't brought up any concerns with them that we found in testing, or asked for clarification on issues. So it's not LG trying to stop a negative review. They don't know if it's negative. It's LG seemingly trying to stop a review that says anything bad about their product whatsoever. In fact, based on what I've tested so far, it's more likely than not that the review would be positive about the product, which makes this mess so insane. There are obvious issues with LG's conduct here. At no point should a company ever dictate review terms as part of an embargo. Companies should never ask to see draft copies so they can make edits. And especially, companies should never, ever, ever offer compensation to secretly manipulate a review to their favor. That's not a review, that's a paid advertisement, which we are required to disclose under the law. If we accepted these terms, which we never would have, and presented the content as a review, we likely would have done something illegal as well as morally wrong. As in previous instances of this, our concern is not for us. Thanks to the support of our Patreon and Floatplane members, we've been able to survive companies blacklisting us. Direct contributions keep us independent and able to buy products from any company that decides to put a blacklist on us. So if LG blacklists us over this, so be it. We will continue to fairly and independently review their products to give our honest analysis, just like we did with ASRock and just like we would have done with Nvidia if they didn't come to their senses. So we really appreciate the support. No, I'm more concerned about other reviewers, particularly smaller reviewers who rely on review samples to run their business. Refusing to comply with LG's demands and being blacklisted in the process could seriously hurt their publication, as LG is such a large brand in the space. If these smaller players are unable to purchase their own review samples, which is usually the case when starting out, we've been there and know what it's like, and a company like LG is refusing to offer samples under standard review terms without interference, then LG is effectively controlling the narrative so only positive coverage gets produced. We stand against this conduct publicly so that everyone can produce fair reviews based on their opinions, especially those that don't have the means to fight back. There are plenty of questions that remain as well. To be absolutely fair and clear, we don't know if LG has tried a similar thing with any other reviewer, and we don't know if this is company policy. We don't know if this behavior is isolated just to LG CNS Korean marketing team, or whether it's also happened with other marketing and PR teams in other regions. But it still points to failures at LG. For one, I don't think the rogue employee excuse applies. Each email our LG contacts sent us was also sent to 5 other LG employees, suggesting there is some level of oversight over this communication. This may simply be something that one office at an LG subsidiary thought they could get away with to boost the numbers in their reports to LG Electronics, but even so, it would suggest a failure in training standards and guidelines established by LG. Someone at LG should be educating all marketing employees that this conduct is unacceptable and potentially damaging to the brand. What happens from here? Well, we are still going to review LG products one way or another. We like to maintain positive working relationships with companies where possible, and there are many times where this has been beneficial both for the company and ourselves. In the end, it helps us to make more accurate reviews with the best information. If LG come to their senses, I am more than happy to continue accepting review samples provided there are no conditions attached. If they decide to blacklist us, we will buy their products and review them anyway in the same fair, independent way we have been doing since we started. We don't need LG to provide us with review samples to produce reviews. We are more than capable of buying their products ourselves, so any threats of taking away review samples or blacklisting us don't really work with us. For the 32GP850 specifically, this monitor will be reviewed. Because we didn't agree to an embargo, we can publish our review at any time. However, we may wait until we can just purchase a retail sample in this instance, just to ensure there's no further complications. And it's amazing that we have to repeat this, but here it goes. This is a lesson to all companies. Do not manipulate reviews. Do not bribe reviewers. This conduct is dirty. It's bad, it damages your brand, and we will expose it. Accept reviews and critical feedback, take it on board, and improve your products. Take the good and the bad, do the right thing. Anyway, that's it for this one. This really isn't a video that I particularly enjoy making. I would much rather talk about products that I think are worth buying, but we're simply not going to let this conduct get swept under the rug. This has to be exposed, and companies like LG need to do better, because we cannot have companies manipulating reviews in the shadows. It's just not on. Anyway, if you're interested in supporting the channel and keeping us independent, we have our Patreon and Floatplane accounts. Links to those are in the description below, and we appreciate all the support we get, because we probably will have to buy LG products to review from now on. Anyway, that's it for this one. I'll catch you in the next one.